Welcome to the next session of Chapter 10, Basics in Biblical Hebrew of Hebrew Construct Nouns. We're going to go ahead and continue on with this chapter here and go through further explanations of how to recognize the construct nouns, the construct chain, because it is very frequent within the Hebrew language here. We see it all occur a tremendous amount of times in the scriptures. Let's go ahead and get in the spelling of nouns in the construct state. In many instances, a singular construct noun and its lexical form are identical in spelling. For example, when we have Zeus, which can be either horse or horse of, and Kol, which is voice or voice of, it can be both the absolute or construct. It doesn't change. There's no vowel reduction here in this because the Kol is a historical long vowel. It's irreducible, doesn't change, just as well as Shurik when we studied in Chapter 2 the vowels. So if you need to, go back here and re-study the vowels. Likewise, we have Melech, which can be both either king or king of, and we'll get to that in a little bit later on in this lesson here. But most construct nouns, however, are spelled differently than their lexical form. These changes are occasioned because a construct noun surrenders its primary accent. Therefore, only the absolute noun has the primary accent, and the entire construct chain is pronounced as though it were a single word. Like when we had Makef, the same thing happened there. The accent shifts from the first word to the second word because of the Makef, the little horizontal line. The changes in spelling that occur with nouns in the construct state are similar to those changes that are a noun undergoes when taking a pronominal suffix. Although a standard lexicon will provide the construct form for most nouns, a few rules will enable us to identify most of the changes that are on our own here. So what we want to do is go through these rules and look at them and learn. We're memorizing to recognize is what we're doing here. And again, it takes time for your eye to recognize, but eventually your eye will pick this stuff up as you go through it. First is the vowel reduction. Because the construct noun loses its primary accent, the vowels of the construct noun will often reduce or change their length. The following rules apply to endless nouns, whether they're masculine or feminine, and it does exclude the seglet nouns here. We'll get into seglet nouns a little later on. In the construct state, a comet and sometimes sere changes to a patak in a final closed syllable. So here's our final closed syllable. For example, in mishpat, we have pot, the pay, the comments, and the ta and the tet here is your final closed syllable here. You have a comments there. In the absolute, when you go, you convert over into the construct, that comments reduces to a patak highlighted here in red. It's mishpat, or you could say mishpat, but that it is reduced to a patak. Under midbar, the comments under the bait reduces to a patak under the bait in the construct form of midbar. Under malak, the comments under the aleph reduces to a patak under the aleph in the construct form. So whenever you see these pataks here at the end like that, that can be a good indicator that noun is in construct form here when it's in the final closed syllable. That's one of the keys to look for. Now in certain words, seri also changed to a patak in a final closed syllable. For example, in mizbeach. Of course, this patak under this chet is really not a vowel as much as it is what they call a furtive patak. It gives that chet a sound. What changes here is the seri under the bay. It becomes a patak to mizbach in the construct state. So in the construct state, comments or seri changes to a vocal shavah in an open, unaccented syllable also. So we have the patak changing, the commas changing to a patak in the closed final syllable, and we have a commas changing to a simple shava in an open, unaccented syllable here. So the commas under the noon in Navi, when you bring it into a construct noun position, reduces to a simple shava under the noon, Navi. Same thing with shalom. Commas under the shin reduces to a simple shava in the construct, shalom. Like I said, when you see uh, the simple shava under the first consonant of a two-syllable noun, that is a dead ringer to tell you that that noun is in construct. Same thing with makom. The chametz or the chametz reduces to a shava when it's in the construct. Now, frequently, both rules, 1A and 1B, will apply to formation of a noun in the construct state. In other words, the vowels in both syllables will reduce, and we'll see some examples of that. Note that in the last example, chaser, the guttural takes a hatef patak, not a vocal shava, as in the other examples, and that's because that that is a chet is a guttural, and it can't take a simple shava, vocal shava. So let's look at this. Let's look under the absolute. You got davar. This is masculine singular davar. When it becomes a construct noun, the comments under the vet reduce to a patak in 1A, rule 1A, and in rule 1B, the comments under the open unaccented syllable reduces to a simple shava. So you got davar here. Same thing with levav for heart. You have the closed final syllable comments reducing to a patak, and the open unaccented syllable of serai is reduced to a shava. So that's basically tell you that that is a construct noun here. Same thing with kahal. Comments under the hay reduces to a patak under the hay. Comments on the cove reduces to a simple shava on the cove. That's how you know it. Like I said, if you can't tell by consonants, look at the vowels. That's going to be an indicator. That's what the Masoretes are trying to tell you here when they pointed it with the Nikadut that way. We have the Zaken. You have a Sarai under the Kof. It changes to a Patak under the Kof. The comments reduces under the Zion to a Shava under the Zion in the construct noun. And then we get to the one that it was talking about, the Chaser, the court. Sarai changes to a patak in the construct. The comments reduces down to, instead of a simple shava, because this is a guttural, a chet is a guttural, it reduces to a hatef patak, chasar, court of. So you have there the occurrences of both rules 1A and 1B occurring in the vowel reduction here. Now let's get to the one-syllable nouns of Kol and Bain. They occur so frequently in the construct chain more than they do in the absolute in the Bible. And in the construct state, these nouns, like other nouns, will experience reduction of the changeable long vowels to its corresponding short vowel. So, for example, we have Bain here in sun with the Sarai. In the absolute noun state, when it's changed to a construct state, the Sarai, which is long E sound, reduces to a short E of the Sagol, Ben, son of. Kol, here in the absolute reduces to a, the holum reduces down to a hatef patak, not hatef patak, but a kamas hatuf here, which is a short O. Holum is a long changeable O, and Comet Satuf is a short changeable O, an ah sound. So Kal, all up. We have Yod. Same thing happens here. The comets reduces to a patak. You can say Yad. But we don't make any distinctions nowadays between the patak and the comets. But if you want to, that's okay. You can say Yad here. The masculine plural Hirik Yod Mem Safid ending, which shows you that is masculine plural, or the dual masculine of the Patak Yod Hirik Mem Safid endings will change to a Sarayod. So whenever you see the Sarayod on the end of a word there, that is telling you that is a masculine plural construct noun. So when we have the Sarayod plus, we use rule 1b above is applied to produce the construct form. So let's go ahead and go and look at some examples here. We have Elohim, which is masculine plural construct. When we want to make it masculine plural, masculine plural absolute here. Elohim is masculine plural absolute. When we want to make it masculine plural construct, the Hirik Yod Mem Safid is dropped off. The Sari Yod is added to the root, and the root remains the same. Elohe. Elohe here. Okay? That's what we get here. Elohe. Now, when we go to Banim for sons in the absolute, this is masculine plural absolute. That's how you'd parse it. When you want to make it masculine plural construct, the Hirik Yod Mem Safid drop off. You add the Sari Yod, and then the comets under the open unaccented syllable reduces to a shavah. Bene. Same thing with anaim for two eyes. The ending, the patak yod hirik mem safid ending drops off. The sari yod takes its place to show that's masculine plural construct, and then the vowel in between, that is a historical long vowel, remains the same. The sari yod remains the same. So it's ane. Ane. When we go to Devarim, which is masculine plural absolute right here, again, the Hirik Yod Mem Safid drops off, it's replaced with the Sarai Yod ending. The Shavah, the comets under the vet, reduces to a Shavah. But because you got two Shavahs here, one at the first consonant, the other on the second consonant, you can't have that. The first one will lengthen to a Hirik, and the second one will be non-vocal. So the first one does the talking, the second one just does the walking right there. We also have here under the feminine nouns, singular nouns, when you have a comment say feminine ending, the ending changes this ending to a patak tav. Now we've seen this happen before when we were studying the feminine nouns. And also in the pronominal suffixes, we saw the same thing. And then we use Rule 1b, which is applied to produce the construct form. So let's look at these examples. We have a very common word of Torah that we've used to. The comments hey tells you it's feminine singular, absolute noun. When you bring it to feminine singular construct, the hey drops off, the tav takes its place, the comments reduces to a patak. And you have tarat here. Same thing with malka for queen. The hey drops out, the tav takes its place, the comments reduces to a patak, and you have makat or makat, either way you want to pronunciate it. Shana for year, hey drops out, tav takes its place, comments reduces to a patak, and then in your open unaccented syllable, the comments under your shin reduces down to a simple shavah, and you have shanat here. or shanat, one of the two here. So that, like I said, that whenever you have a two-syllable word in that first syllable, you have a simple shava. That's a dead ringer. Tell you that that is a construct noun, even if you aren't aware of the final tav in there. Feminine plural noun endings retain oat in their construct form. So both oat is both absolute and construct in the feminine plural here, and then we do the vowel reduction of 1b is applied also to produce the construct form here. For example, let's go over here to this example of mamlechot, which is the kingdoms. It's feminine plural in the absolute form. We'll make it feminine plural construct. The oat is retained, but the only thing it changes is the vowel reduction here in its open syllable of the comments to a shava in there. So it's mamlechot, kingdoms of. Same thing with shemot for names. The oat is retained. The sere reduces to a shava in the construct form. So we have shmot, names of. Sadot in the absolute, oats retain, comets is changed under the sin to a shava, sadot. And berachot for blessings, or berachot for blessings in the absolute, is also birkot. Oat is retained. Same thing happens that happened in divrei for words of, is the comments under the resh is reduced down to a shava, and you already had a shava under debate here, so you can't have two under your first two syllables. The first one will lengthen to a hirik, the second one will be non-vocal under the rules of shava, and so you have birchot. Birchot. That's the reason why you have that hirik there. Okay, and so let's go to number 5 here. Certain one-syllable nouns add the hirik yod to their stem in the construct state. You'll recall that this also occurs when these same nouns take pronominal suffixes. You must be careful not to confuse this hirik yod with the first common singular pronominal suffix. And let's look at for some examples and contrast and compare. We have av, which is father in the absolute. This is masculine singular absolute. When you bring it into the masculine singular construct, you add the hirik yod, which is highlighted here in red, and also you have a vowel reduction of the comments to a hatef patak, a compound shava up under aleph here, avi. Ach is absolute, masculine singular absolute for brother. Same thing. You have the hirik yod added in the construct, and you have the vowel reduction of the comments to a hatef patak. So the only difference is that you can make differences is recognizing whether it has a comments or whether it has a hatef patak, a reduced vowel, a reduced A-class vowel here. And that makes all the difference of saying father of versus my father, or brother of, or my brother. It's all in the reduction of the vowel under the aleph. That's the only difference there. And that's why it's important to look at those, understand those vowel reductions, and learn to recognize that. That way, that makes a difference in the translations you'll be doing. Now, there are a small group of nouns that occur with some frequency in the construct state that are characterized by a diphthong of the patak, yod, and hirik, and two such nouns are bite and ein. Bite for house and ein for eye or spring. In the construct state, this diphthong changes to a sere yod. So you got patak, yod, hirik changing to a sere yod. The construct forms of these nouns are much more common than their absolute or lexical forms, And for this reason, it's important to memorize both the absolute and construct forms as vocabulary. And so let's go through a few examples here. You got bite for house. The Pathak Yod here changes to a Sarah Yod here in there. So that's within the root right there. So you see Beit David, Beit Shlomo. I mean, you see Beit so much more than you do in the construct form than you do bite in the absolute form. Same thing with ein and ain. That's what happens here. You see this more often, and so that you recognize that more often. Matter of fact, it gives you some information down here. In number footnote 7 here, the noun bite occurs a total of 2,047 times in the Hebrew Bible. And in 477 instances, which is 23%, it appears in the absolute state. It appears 1,570 times, which is 77%, in the construct state of bait. Likewise, ein occurs 83 times, which is 9% in the absolute state, but it appears 817 times, which is 91%, in the construct state of ein. So, like I said, it's just very interesting to notice those things here. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the seglet nouns here, which we alluded to earlier. Seglet nouns both have the same form in the absolute singular and construct singular. So when you say a masculine singular absolute and masculine singular construct, they are identical. They can be either king or king of. Now the plural construct form of the seglet noun, and this is always the case in seglet nouns, is malke here. You have the patak and the non-vocal shava under your second consonant. And then you have the seriod, which we already learned is the ending for a masculine plural ending here. So we got melech here for king, under the absolute, melech under the construct. So it could be either king or king of. You have example eved, which could be either servant, or eved, which would be servant of. And but the changes occur when we get into the absolute and construct plural. Absolute plural is melachim here, which we learned when we studied the nouns. It takes a special vowel pattern here. But when we get into the masculine plural construct, the Hirik Yod Mem Safit drops off. You put the Sarah Yod at the end. That tells you it's masculine plural construct. And then you have a patak under your first consonant with a non-vocal shava up under your second consonant. And this is always the case on the plural masculine construct nouns, seglet nouns. It's malke or mache. Evadim, same thing. Hirik Yod Mem Safit drops off. Sarah Yod takes its place. You have a patak up under the ayin and a non-vocal shava under the vet. Alright. So like I said, learning those vocalization patterns on the seglet nouns are very important. You'll notice that. And again, you'll see them so often it will become part of you. Recognize that whenever you see a seriod at the end of the word, that is masculine plural construct. Every time. Nouns ending in segol hey have a singular construct form, which turns into a serehe. And so, for example, we have the word sadeh for field. The segol lengthens to a sere. And the comments under the sin, because that is a open, unaccented syllable, it reduces to a simple shava. So in the construct, here, you have sadeh, field of. Again, the sere hey will be a indicator. Sere hey in that will be an indicator that that is a noun in the construct. Also, you have machane for camp. You have the segal lengthening to a sere, machane. And so that finishes and concludes the study of the construct nouns in Hebrew here. I would encourage you to go back and review this, keep reviewing this chapter, because this chapter, as well as pronominal suffixes, as I said before in the previous lessons, are very important chapters to get under your belt, um, because they're so frequent within the scriptures, and it's very important for translational purposes. So go ahead and go back and keep reviewing, even when you keep on going to the next chapter stuff. Keep going back and reviewing those chapters until you feel comfortable with it. And go ahead and go on to the homework on this lesson. There is a lot of homework on this lesson. The grammar gives you the knowledge. The workbook gives you the understanding. So be sure to go ahead and go through that. And we will meet again on the next lesson. We'll go over all the homework. And be sure to sign up for the breakout sessions. Just go to tobysplace.org to sign up for those breakout sessions, okay? All right, shalom.